where we want a restaurant to be is 6 to 8% occupancy.
Okay.
So if they're doing $100,000, if their rent was $6,000 to $8,000 a month, that'd be, I would say, okay, you're in a good spot. You can make money. Well, I make this promise of 15-20% profit for restaurants, and it comes from that range of 15 to 20 really comes from, okay, you hit your prime cost targets that we're saying. If your occupancy is in line, then we can do this.
This episode brought to you by Restaurant Systems Pro. With excitement, allow me to introduce to you today's guest, CEO of Restaurant Systems Pro, Fred Langley. My man, Fred, you're feeling unstoppable today.
I'm feeling unstoppable. Really excited to be here.
You came on my radar, man, and you started just connecting me with people. Nothing but amazing things have been being said about how your software has been helping people transform. You just started getting into the point of your story, your timeline, where you're 3 or 4 years as a restaurant owner. You opened your second restaurant. You said something really specific, or I think it's key, is that you had your fine dining, high touch restaurant, but you needed to open your family casual restaurant, your moneymaker, your cash cow.
Yeah.
So get into this. You knew that you needed. There's not a lot of money to be made in fine dining, right?
No, there isn't. There isn't.
Yeah.
And you're chasing perfection, and there's a lot. And we're gonna, I'm actually teaching on hospitality tomorrow, and that's where a lot of that came out. Where I was just, this driven chef that at every moment, like my entire goal, like I didn't even think about money at all. I realized that you have to think about money if you want to make it, if you want to actually enjoy what you're doing, if you want to be able to do what you're doing at its highest level. You can't be worrying about the electric bill or paying, anything. You have to have all your ducks in a row, and it makes it so much more fulfilling to be able to take care of your staff too, and to be able to, there's nothing wrong with charging appropriately so that you can take care of the people that you spend your life with, which is all the people that you're working with. At that point, I didn't learn. I think it took me a little bit older to get to it. I think going to my next job from when I was 18, I think is where I really started to refine like that high quality. I just knew like, hey, if you wanted to receive the best product, you better communicate with your vendors. Like you don't ever compromise, right? Take the high road at every turn is something I always like to say, and that's how I would eventually teach my people. It's like lots of things that you pass on, like, hey chef, smell this. Like, no, I'm not going to smell this. Would you feed it to your grandma? Then and that's the easy answer. No, then we're not going to feed it to any of our guests, right?
Renee Fugue was your mentor. What was his title? Was he the executive chef?
He was the executive chef. He kind of was started. He was at the end of his career, and I was at the very beginning of my career. And we invigorated each other. Like I reignited his passion as a young person wanting to learn and explore and become a chef, and really was like, I fell into the restaurant business obviously, but I was in love with it. And I wanted to know every herb. I wanted to be able to cut every single type of cut from bâtonnet, to know the difference between chiffonade and julienne, and like I was just like absorbing everything I possibly could as a young kid. Yeah, okay.
So you were owning a restaurant while working with Restaurant Systems Pro?
Yeah, so we opened in 2003, and I was, by 2004, I was like in.
Okay.
And, as far as how I got involved, I had just gone up and I'd started educating myself. At that point, I'd worked up to where I'm sous chef, and, is there a chance for me to become chef? And I was like, I didn't want to make a lateral move. And there were some things where our restaurant was growing, and, the small farmers would all show up with our tomatoes, and then Cisco would show up right behind with the rest of them because we were growing so much and we couldn't order all from all the small farmers, right? Man. And so I'm like, man, I don't want to do this. So I went and I found a spot and got some investment from family, and and they borrowed money to do it. It wasn't like they had money laying around too, so we had to make it. And so we went and found a place in Windsor, which is just south of Healdsburg, right there in wine country, with all, and we got after it. And, coming up in my own career, I'd always worked 2 jobs. I worked in a bakery in the morning to learn pastry. I'd work at other restaurants too. I did catering on my own, but not like catering, like a 10-course meal for 7 people in somebody's home type of catering,
Yeah.
And I learned there that I wanted to open kitchen and all those types of thing. And then, so at 27, I opened my first restaurant right there in Sonoma County.
So was there like pivotal points for you in your career at this? What was the name of the restaurant you're working at after?
Langley's on the Green.
Langley's, thank you very much. Langley's on the Green.
Yeah.
Was this like an evolutionary point for you as a chef? Do you think? How did you grow during this time? What were you trying?
Absolutely. I thought I was ready to be a restaurant owner, and I was not ready to be a restaurant owner.
Knowing what you know now about
oh
the
my
restaurant
gosh,
industry,
not even.
and reflecting back at that version of yourself,
If
you can go back in time and be like, dude, like I know you, trust me.
Right.
This is what you need to do differently. Like, what would that?
Well, I didn't know anything about accounting. I didn't know anything about the numbers. I had actually planned how I would run my restaurant off of the restaurant that I came from. And the restaurant that I was working for and came from, they actually didn't have any. They didn't have any debt, and they didn't have any debt service, no rent.
Okay.
Right. They
So
just
they
were
own
on
the
the
building,
property, right?
Okay, yep.
And so I kind of planned like, oh, this was their food costs, this is their labor, and I'm going along. And today I realized that they were making money in real estate, not the restaurant business. Right.
So just with the appreciation of the property. Or
yes,
like,
exactly. So it was actually it had been bought out. The property I worked on sold for like $50 million, and it was Don Carano. He owns Froy Carano Winery.
Okay.
And he owns like the El Dorado in Reno and the Silver Legacy in Reno, so a couple casinos. So big money came in and bought the property, and I'm looking at the books. I'm like, here's our restaurant and everything. There's no rent or there's nothing in there, and so it was a big line item that I had left out of my plan. For sure, as I'm going to operate, which is a huge. It's like one of your biggest expenses
for sure.
as a restaurant operator. But and the way that they operated is like I thought, oh, they're profitable. But I realized today that you actually throw some occupancy in there, and they actually weren't profitable at all. And then I went and operated my restaurant just like that.
So what do you mean by if you throw some occupancy in there? What, like?
So today, knowing your numbers, that's my whole life, right? And so where we want a restaurant to be is 6 to 8% occupancy.
Okay.
So if they're doing $100,000, if their rent was $6,000 to $8,000 a month, I would say, okay, you're in a good spot. You can make money. Well, I make this promise of 15-20% profit for restaurants, and it comes from that range of 15 to 20 really comes from, okay, you hit your prime cost targets that we're saying. If your occupancy is in line, then we can do this.
We have to interrupt today's video to let you know that right now Restaurant Systems Pro is offering a no strings attached 60-day trial that will help you improve your systems, increase your profit, and find better work-life balance. All you have to do is click the link below.
For any business charging, it's like somebody will say, oh man, you shouldn't charge that, whatever you're charging for this. It's like, well, saying like it's, sometimes people say, oh, it's greedy for you to charge that. You have a $20 burger, that's greedy. Or you have, you're charging whatever for Restaurant Systems Pro, that's greedy. How could you be charging that much? And really the thing is it's not greedy to want to have healthcare for all of your people that work for you, right? And their families too, because you start getting into all the things. What we do is we know that if we get you going in the beginning with all the systems, then we know you're going to be successful. And so we don't have onboarding fees because we want to be affordable. Should I? Probably yes. If that's the right answer business wise, I probably should be charging a lot more.
But at the same time, I feel like you're playing the long game.
Exactly.
And like that like you're gonna keep those, like, in order for this to work, you got to show up and do the work, and you need to help develop those habits and those routines, because if you just hand them here's permission to use the technology, go get them. People need their hands held, and
for accountability too, like to show up,
and
like
the
trainer,
and
right?
the support, and
if I have a trainer, if I'm going to the gym and I know a trainer is going to meet me there, I'm more likely to show up and do it. And so we schedule those weekly calls for 100 days, and we say 100 days, but it's until you're ready.
Now,
really?
do you have people that go and travel and help people on board?
Yeah, we have that. We have that as well, and so that just buys speed essentially. So you can have one of our, and it's Lisa Rath, and she goes out there, and she was my assistant for like 4 years before she went off and did that. We make sure that no matter what we do, we want to be making people more than what we cost. That's for sure. So even if it's expensive, you're going to make more than what we cost. Yeah. We always calculate that and know that going hand. But we're really about the software, and we want to help consultants. We want to help consultants go out there and do better at what what they're doing. And I'm actually working. I have a bunch of things exactly what you're talking about in the works with some.
Yeah. I mean, I hope I'm not speaking out of place when I say this, but I think I want it to be clear that the listeners understand that doing anything, how do I say this? Like building systems in your restaurant, implementing systems in your restaurant, no matter how you do it, it's gonna be hard. And I guess where is the biggest challenge for you? I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it. But what is the biggest challenge for you with getting people going?
So the biggest challenge is just getting them to show up. They get discouraged in the beginning. It's a lot of work.
Why do you think that is?
Well, because they don't. It's tough to see the results or see the. It's like I don't need to. I know that there's 10 chicken wings in my chicken wing dish. So I don't need a program to tell me that, right? But when we put that in the recipe card and we started to see a variance on chicken wings for the week, and according to my POS system, I sold 100, and according to what I bought, I used what would have been 125 orders, but I only sold 100 orders. Where did they go?
Yeah.
How are they missing? Like I didn't know they were. They didn't. There's all this revelation of things they don't know, and there's so many times where we talked about raising prices earlier, but the reality is that most restaurants don't need to raise their prices. They just need to control their product a lot more. And what happens is, though, you get better quality. And with enterprise, you can create that and then copy how you do it from store to store to store. And there's big things without, talking about competitors. There's just better being chef instead of being a chef instead of being, a software programmer or just accounting, but being a restaurateur and being the CEO of a software company that's supposed to help restaurateurs has just left us equipped to do it. So not only with my own restaurants, but all the consulting I've done has helped us create this system that is just helps guide people with accountability. And here's what you're supposed to do today. And here's what you do on Monday. Here's what you do on Tuesday. Here's what you do on Wednesday. Here's what my bartenders do on Monday. Here's what everybody is supposed to do. The whole playbook, all there. And it just relieves that stress and allows people to grow. There's so many people that come in, they're like, oh, I would never own more than one restaurant. Well, my clients are buying up restaurants like crazy with the turnover, and then with restaurants that's happened in the last couple of years. They're going out because they have the ability and the means
and the bandwidth,
right, to be able to apply these systems to the next restaurant and the next restaurant, and it's just